No, across our verticals, we have retail, blue food, we have transportation, we have water, clean water access, we have energy. Personally, I think the one that will gain the most and have the most traction now is probably energy, because there's so much need of new energy and clean energy in the world. And speaking of AI, that's a lot of the consumption will come from AI itself. So from a Google perspective, I know there's an interlink as well, creating more energy for what we do, and then we can use AI to help advance both clean energy, more energy, cheaper energy, and also the footprint that it leaves as we build it. So that's the key area where I think we can really advance in the very near future, and it will have a lasting imprint on the way we do. So the way I see it, if we can use AI to really advance the way we get access to energy, free energy, renewable energy, that's going to advance all the other use cases, all the other industries, and advance ultimately humanity. Because if we have almost free energy and a lot of it, then there is no limit to what we can do.
And as you said, it's such a beautiful synergy between everything we're doing from Google in terms of making the data centers more energy efficient, using AI in everything we do from the chips perspective to the energy utilization. And then you have all the work we're doing together where we're actually using AI to figure out the right places to build those renewable power plants, to build the wind farms, to build the solar fields, to how they're operating, and everything in between, including the environmental impact. So it's a beautiful synergy between those.
It really is. And I think moving on that into other industries, you can use AI to use less energy and smarter energy as well. So there's building more energy, but it's also using it smarter when we actually use it. So it's a good place to be. I know a lot of clients, a lot of people ask, that AI will just create more demand for energy, and in that side, it's also a bad thing. But I think the effect of what we're talking about right now is bigger than the demand it will have for energy itself. So could you just, in the context of AI using energy, I know we've covered this before, you and I, is basically the topic of how how much energy is being used when we create models versus how much we use when we just operate them, which is most of the time.
So there's a number of different things. Obviously, when you create a model, you're using, depending on the type of model, and we're seeing different techniques now to reduce that, but we're seeing, tens or even hundreds of thousands of GPUs. So it is energy intensive to actually generate those models. We're seeing with things like our tensor processing units that we're building, as well as the latest and greatest from NVIDIA, you're getting more and more efficient, more and more capability, more horsepower per watt, essentially, output. So we're seeing more and more efficiencies, but that is an energy hungry system. And from a Google perspective, we see the fact that we've been using renewable energy and really focusing on that for, essentially decades at this point, where we have a huge amount of our power that is already renewable and having zero carbon footprint. And again, we can decide where we train those models. So we can train those models in the most energy efficient location, and then we can serve those models up anywhere. So to the second part of your question, serving the models is much cheaper and easier once you have it trained. Now, obviously at scale, there's still a lot of energy, but the serving of those models is incredibly efficient in comparison to the massive training.
And can you do so with training when we have a surplus, when the wind blows and the sun shines?
Of course. So, everything becomes, and this is what we're working with partners on who are building their own models between ours and open source and tuning. You can decide if, does it have to be done at the fastest possible time, or can you again say, I'm going to do it at a location that has the most renewable energy at the time when there's most renewable energy. So you can do all of that. We have a lot of dashboarding on that as well, so you can see exactly your consumption and understand what you can do to maximize or minimize or maximize the efficiency of everything you're doing.
So in the context of AI agents, which is, I guess, fair to say is the on everyone's lips these days. There's a rather big battle going on. I think also there's a lack of understanding of how you can use it, because it's fairly new, because there hasn't been a lot of, shall we say, scaled use cases in production yet, which is fair. So one of the things that we're thinking about and working together on is how we can bring to the clients, both the technology side and the business side, the art of the possible, enabling them to understand how they can use AI in an enterprise setting with agents. Our approach so far is basically how we can build together, shoulder to shoulder, right? Enabling, and I think with AI agents, we're also seeing that we don't need 20 data engineers, we need 2. We don't need to have a whole run of, let's say, 6 months before we get a result. We can do things in weeks. But even now, we're even seeing together that we can do things in hours together with the business to prove a point and to get quite far. So your thoughts on that kind of approach and how we can enable people from that art of the possible angle?
So, Stig Martin, as you said, working shoulder to shoulder is absolutely the way we need to do this. So you're bringing all the deep vertical knowledge. We're bringing the sort of the capabilities that we have from the platform perspective. And I see the AI agent capability, and maybe to take a step back, what do we mean by AI agents? So the key piece of this is, we've had the chat interaction where I can ask a model a question, it gives us a response back. And while that's super useful in many cases, what we're looking for here is, I wanted to actually take actions. I wanted to be able to reach into those tools, databases, APIs, get the right information, and take actions on that information, and just come back to the user when I really need the next input. So this is sort of the key difference with AI agents, that you can actually get to the full action. So what we're seeing is, you don't need to throw out all the tools that the business has created over the years. You can actually leverage those, you can reach into those, get the right feedback, get it to take the actions, and then you can pull that together with other external data, with unstructured data, with structured data, and really pull it together in, as you said, a matter of hours into a fully functional proof of concept that shows you the value and actually can give you insights immediately. We've been over the last week, as we've been talking to customers, we've had scenarios where, in a matter of hours, we can show the value of data, where we're bringing in customer-like data. We're showing that you can create the code to do the analysis, to come up with the questions to do the analysis, have the visualizations done for you in a matter of seconds, without having to have an expert in the data science to know what exactly that information is telling you, or the data says.
We're really seeing some aha moments with the clients lately, haven't we? They've been going from this skeptical, this is science fiction, to actually pulling it up, doing it in front of them, and going, oh, this is actually here now. One of the reactions I vividly remember is this, oh, we need to reskill. We need to rethink how we interact. I think this, for me, one of the biggest aha moments around agents, going from this chat interface and everyone being a prompt engineer on a chat interface, is this where engineering, data insights, and kind of crowdsourcing with agents becomes a thing. How it's not just one item that goes together, it's multiple. So the agents works pretty much like humans would work. There's an agent and an expert on data science, there's an expert on whatever, it could be banking, it could be a very narrow set of compliance, ESG reporting, whatever it might be. And then they come together, and I think that's maybe where a lot of the market hasn't seen yet, and what that actually can be in the transformation of their own company. So that's a very interesting part to me, that we're kind of, I would say, mimicking the way organizations themselves work, but at the speed of AI.
Absolutely, and I think the beautiful part of what you just mentioned is, as with a real team, you can add a new person into that team at any point. So in this case, you start with a research agent, but then you're adding the compliance agent, you're adding the the hydrology agent in some of our ecosystem cases. So you're able to add those components. You can add more tools that each of these agents has access to, and it's very seamless to continue to add more and more components to give you more depth, so that you're building this out over time. You get value day one, but then you're building it out to have more and more capability. And I think what we're seeing is, even in scenarios where companies have very complex cases that they're handling pretty manually today, there's just parameters that they're not looking at. And what we're going to see is, we're going to handle what they're doing today, and then very quickly we're going to be, oh, and we can add these other 5 parameters that you know are issues, but you didn't really have bandwidth to add in. And we can add those over time and add more and more value.
And you can do it at the pace of the business rather than the pace of a old-fashioned waterfall IT project, right?
Exactly.
Which I think is the tremendous speed and business transformation that will actually happen now. And that's an interesting part of this. So looking at this, let's say that we all know that transformation happens in the speed of the organization and not the technology. What are your thoughts on where we should apply pressure to get the speed up and running? Because, quite frankly speaking, I think a lot of organizations and enterprises they want to unleash this power, they just don't know how, and it's a little bit hard right now without reach to understand where to start. Is there any thoughts on that?
So I think what we've seen a couple of areas where there's immediate traction. Talk to your data is sort of very simple components, sort of conceptually, but you see value immediately. So everybody's struggling with, hey, I've got this pool of data, I have my experts who are looking at it, but to have a situation where everybody from the CEO down can really interact with that data and leverage that, and actually the AI can tell you, here's what you should be asking the data. I think that's where a number of the aha moments have come. I would say it differs per organization, of course. You know, the important part is to really interact, have the discussion with the organization, bringing in some data that's, you know, in the language of the organization also helps as you're talking about this. So I think, you know, as we've been discussing with customers over the last few weeks, even if we're talking about synthetic data, the fact that it's in the language and of the customer completely changes the discussion that you're having.
Yeah, people can relate much more to it. It becomes much more tangible. Yes, absolutely. And speaking of data, that's a bit of an issue, isn't it? I mean, does everything have to be in order to get going? Because, I mean, speaking for myself, I've built a few data platforms over the years, and that's a lot of work. Maybe less so value in the beginning. So where are we at this? I know Google's been building lots of connectors, but still, I'm pretty confident that organization will continue to have lots of disparate sources. They will have lots of unorganized, unstructured data. That's a big leap forward to crack that one. Are we there?
So the short answer is yes. And I think the beautiful thing with generative AI and the AI revolution that we've seen is unstructured data is such a perfect source of information for how to bring it in. So be that unstructured data that's in your SharePoint, in your OneDrive, in your Google Drive, we have all the connectors to bring all of that data in and make sense of it essentially. Index that quickly, bring the right information out, Salesforce, Jira information, Slack information, all your documents and so on, and bring that together into insights. And then you combine that with, you know, very structured information, be that in your standard databases, an SAP database, even something, I mentioned Salesforce already, but there's a lot of structured data there as well. So you can have the combination of those two to really get you insights into what you're doing. And, you know, it's always nice to have clean, beautifully manicured data. We all know that takes an enormous amount of time and effort. What we're seeing with AI now is you can get insights really, really quickly. And even if there's some data cleaning to do, you kind of understand where the gaps are much more quickly. And you can also make it efficient to, where do I put my time and effort in cleaning that data, not just having a 2-year project to have data cleaning. And I think you mentioned it as well. we're not doing major lift and shift or moving databases or, we don't need to do that. We can take the data where it is and get the insights from that data where it is based on all of these connectors.
Yeah, and no need for this huge project to bind everything together first and clean and cleanse.
Absolutely.
But I think the other part that we're seeing is a clear new way of working, which is much more top-down. I mean, traditionally, I would say it's very common for us to think about bottom-ups. It's the details, it's the architecture, it's very functional way of thinking, while now we can take the business problem and start immediately just attacking that with AI and LLMs and agents. And as to your point, we're doing a bit of iteration all the time now, much faster, together with the business, together with whatever function in the operations as well in the business. I think I'm starting to see this place where companies are becoming enabled to do much more a product way of working with IT and AI rather than projects, which I'm really looking forward to, because that means that we can iterate and change things as we go along. We can evolve rather than run, pointed projects with failures at the end or successes or whatever they may be, but just become more of a product organization around our IT and our digital efforts, which is, I think a lot of organizations would like that, especially the ones who already produce products.
Yes. No, I agree. The conversations we're having together with customers, you're talking immediately about business problems. Where's the data? How do I get the data? Is the data clean? Those are not discussions we need to have in the same way, because that access we can get very quickly and very easily, and whatever sort of shape the data is in, we can actually manage that. So it allows you to have the, how is my shipping system, how is my routing working for shipping to my hubs? That's the important conversation. It's not getting into some nitty-gritty minutia project on the IT side. It's really solving the business problems.
I think this is a very promising thing where for the first time since maybe the creation of internet, we get something that's transforming the way we actually work and execute as organizations, both on the vendor side, the supplier side, and the client side. And maybe it also changes, I hope, the way we work together. That would be much more focused on the outcome, much more focused on the iteration to the market and to the product, and then in turn value.
No, I mean, we're seeing that the value that we're adding to these customers, the outcomes that they're getting from the projects that we're implementing, it's not I'm going to refactor your database. It is I'm going to transform how you route shipping, in the future, in the next 6 months. It's a very quick turnaround.
You can attack the big questions as well, which is really fun, right?
Absolutely.
Really transformation rather than I'm going to do accounting in a different way, changing my record a little bit.
Exactly.
I'm looking forward to the continuation of all this. So one of the projects we've done together quite recently was how can we use all public available, peer-reviewed, proper scientific research to a specific topic. And in our case, it was clean water and natural-based solutions. And we brought together I think it was 500,000 documents or thereabouts. And we had an AI agent that did the research finding these documents. We had an AI agent looking at the relevance of it, one checking that it was peer reviewed and it was from a good source. And then we had an agent pulling together a review of the relevance for the question, and an agent then looking at creating a meta study almost on top of that. And the whole thing was processed, I believe. We created the whole thing in around 10 weeks, and now it's running, giving an answer and a report, a meta study if you want, in about 2.5 minutes. So there's a thing here where one of the things that I've seen over time with working with a lot of enterprises is that they're really proud of their own data, and to a certain extent that is very valuable. But however, I think there's very few of them that has been able to understand how they can take their own internal research papers and enrich that with all the other data that's available around the world that's relevant and quality. So how do we think about that? How can we make sure that businesses understand that living in your own silo and just using your own data probably is not going to advance you as much as they sometimes think it will? I mean, we're looking at a lot of sources, and Google's a big enabler for those other ways of finding data and coupling that in with your own business data.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, the beauty of the use case you described is, of course, they can easily decide to bring in their own data to that as well. So it's that perfect combination of things. I think we've seen external data coming together in some of the use cases in really interesting ways that I think get people excited. We've used satellite imagery. Obviously, we have, from a Google perspective, our Earth Engine capabilities to support with various types of analysis. So, for example, figuring out where palm oil is affecting the Amazon, you know, in terms of deforestation. You can get it to some of the work that we've been doing together in terms of impacts on river systems and water systems. We can look at where is the most suitable place for renewable energy location. So there's a huge amount of information from satellite imagery. There's a lot more satellite imagery than there used to be. It has a lot better quality. There's different bands and different things you can get from it, vegetative health as an example. So that's just one example, but also things like our GenCast and GraphCast weather models, where now we're getting the best prediction 10 days out, better than any other weather model, to help everything from shipping to storm prediction to planning what's the route of a storm that's going to go through, what infrastructure is going to get damaged. Again, taking other AI models to help you plan resources and where people and equipment should be placed in advance of that storm. So that combination of external data is really, and you add something like, you know, social media data to bring in the live information of what's really happening. We've been looking at bringing in things like, have there been lawsuits in these areas? You know, is that going to affect, is there any other sort of local legislation, regulations that are impacting different aspects of what you're doing? So there's huge amounts of external data that now, again, just by adding another agent, just by adding another tool, we can bring in all of that information really seamlessly into a use case.
And contextualize it together and making it relevant for that specific. So much more controlled form than just adding a snippet of random information. It's very purposeful. I think that one of the most interesting use cases for me is disaster recovery. So we're talking about there's been a huge storm or a downpour or whatever it might be. Millions of households might be affected of this, closed roads, whatever it is, and we can use, first of all, we can use your AI to predict where it's going to hit, how it's going to hit, most likely which part's going to be more ramifications to it than others. But then on the other side, we can help prepare for the storm, but we can't stop the storm. But we can also use AI and these predictions to tell them how to recover really fast, how to where should the people travel from, where should they be when so they're out of harm, and then they can go in the disaster area and actually help clean up, and even down to the level of restoring water, restoring electricity, and how to do that best for the best of the population that lives in the area. It's becoming so meaningful. You join the asset information of a company, or even for a city the size of London, you could just look at the layout of the city, and you can then enrich that with your, we're talking really outer world kind of perspective here with storms and effects of buildings and all that stuff. So that's and this is all within our grasp. This is stuff we're working on right now. So very meaningful stuff. Cleaning up the water in the UK, very meaningful as well. And it's going now, I think, I've been in this business for a while. This stuff was utopia. And now we're actually talking about realizing it, and we're seeing it happening straight in front of us. So that big impact, something I'm really excited about. And I think a lot of companies will see CPG as well. They will see they can use that kind of outer world. You mentioned palm oil as an example. I think you can do this in supply chains, tracing them much better. They can operate much more resilient. They can be more sustainable in the way they operate. So bringing out that, making sense of the outer world to your inner data and your CFO data and to your operational data. This is actually happening right now, which makes me really excited, and it's coming together.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think we're getting that reaction from customers as well, where, we're able to show them this in action, where it's not a nice story to tell. This is real. We can make this happen. Our promise to customers is we're going to have an MVP up and running for you in a couple of days. Like, that's the level that we're at. So this is real. It's here now. We can bring your data plus these external data sources and really make impact in your business.
And make it fast and solve some really hard problems. That's the cool part of
the
this.
Fun ones.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ambitions.
Exactly. Let's make it happen, Steve.
Yes.